السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, so today we continue with our series on the short surah of the Quran. We will be doing Surah al-Takaathur. If you look at the previous two surahs we covered, Al-Zilzal, which was about the earthquake, and it ended off with the weighing of the scales in the day of judgment, where everybody will be given their due reward or punishment based on the weight on the scales. And then Al-Qariya, which means the rattling noise or the calamity, which is the precursor to ushering in the day of judgment. Now this one we're going to study today, al-Takaathur, and it's essentially about how we lead our lives, and it ends off with being questioned about all the bounties that we are blessed with throughout our lives. Now, in order to introduce the surah, I want to just talk about two hadith. A hadith is a plural of hadith. Hadith is singular. Hadith is more than one. And there are two hadiths about this, the stomach of the human being. And essentially, it's about a container that can never get enough. So the first hadith from Sahih Muslim is, if the son of Adam had two valleys of wealth, he would desire a third, but nothing will fill the belly of the son of Adam except dust. Now here the dust is obviously when we reach the graves and we enter that new terrain after this worldly life. So it's very profound hadith talking about acquisitiveness and the fact that how mankind, the human nature is such that we want to accumulate more and more and more. And sometimes it's to our detriment. And it's only death that will actually stop this mad race that we are in at times. Then the second hadith is of a slightly different angle, that it says the son of Adam does not fill any vessel worse than his stomach. And it is sufficient for the son of Adam to eat a few mouthfuls, that is, to keep him going or alive or nourished, in other words, to survive. And if he must do that, which is to eat or to fill his stomach just to sustain himself, then let him fill 1/3 with food, 1/3 with drink, and leave 1/3 for air or for breathing. So this is more about the etiquette of eating and the fact that we shouldn't overeat at any cost. And maybe it's also the answer to obesity and all the other sicknesses we have in today's lifestyle that we lead. So I think the main one is about the first hadith, which ties in very well with the first ayah of the surah that we're going to study. Now let's look at some examples. Now, wealth in itself is not a problem, having it, right? But if you have the inordinate, in other words, an insatiable love for wealth, where you just want to have more, and even more is not enough, and you want more than that, and it continues like that in a vicious cycle until you reach the end of your life and death, that is the problem of having wealth. It's not so much having the minimum that you require in order to survive and sustain yourself. Now, we have some examples in the Quran. In Surah Kahf, there's one short story there about two farmers. The one who had a beautiful, lush orchard and thought it will last forever, and he proudly said to the other, the neighboring farmer, who had much less than him, and he says with pride, "Look what I have and you don't." And after having said that, the second farmer actually reminded him that don't talk like that. But he continued, and he faced the fate that Allah removed overnight all the blessings that he had blessed this particular farmer with. All his beautiful orchards and fruit and greenery was turned into stubble just overnight. And then he regretted, he had a remorse that, oh, I should have actually made shukr and appreciated what I have. So I think there's a lesson for us in there. The second incident is in Dawud alayhi salam, and we know he was one of the wise judges from all the prophets. And on one occasion, two persons jumped over the wall of his household and came to him and said, "Please adjudicate on this matter. And there was a rich person who had 99 sheep and the other farmer who had one. So on face value, Dawud al-Islam looked at this and he and he gave a judgment to say that the person who's got 99 should not ask for the other one that the other farmer had, just one. Now sometimes we also fall into that trap where we look at something sort of at a superficial level and we jump to conclusions that because somebody had so much of this and the other one had only one, why does this one who has so much even want the other one to make up 100, as it were? Now, Dawud alayhi salam, after he had given this judgment, soon thereafter he realized that he shouldn't have given judgment so quickly on this matter because Allah was testing him by sending these two people with this case in front of him. Because the story goes that it could be that the farmer who had only one sheep, he was trying to kind of create a sense of entitlement and say, you know what, I'm so poor and I only have one, and why does this rich guy want even this one from me? Couldn't I at least have the opportunity to own one sheep? So there could have been that person playing on the, on the emotions of the judge to say, look at me favorably because I only got one. I'm like a poor guy. Whereas on the other side of it, it could have been that the one who had 99, he actually had a rightful ownership even of that other one that he didn't have for whatever reason it might be. Now, it's this kind of thing that very often, well, esteemed judges like Dawud alayhi salam fell into the trap of, but even we, without the hikmah and the ilm that we, or maybe the shortness of all that we have, we can also fall into this trap. So in any case, Dawud alayhi salam asked for forgiveness and he repented for having prejudged the situation and given this verdict so quickly without having thought of it carefully and listening to the two farmers' cases in deeper depth. Then we have a third incident, Uthman radiallahu anhu. One day, Medina caravan was arriving from far away, loaded with goods, and it was a time of desperate hunger in Medina at the time. And we find the rich businessmen of the day came to Uthman because they knew it was his caravan that had arrived, and they offered him double and triple and even 5 times the value of that particular goods on that particular caravan. And he said, "No, I've got an offer for more and for more and for more." And people didn't understand what he was referring to. And then this ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, it talks about the parable of those who spend their substance in the way of Allah is that of a grain of corn. A grain here meaning a seed of corn that you plant in the soil. That thing grows 7 years, or 7 cobs of corn will grow in each plant, and each ear has got 100 grains in it. Allah gives manifold increase to whom He pleases, and Allah cares for all and He knows all things. So if you look at this picture alongside, just to give you an understanding of it, so from the seed, you get this plant growing up. And in essence, we have like seven of these sort of long leaves, which are called the ears, which houses the cob of the mealie or the corn in it. So there's 7 of these that grow, and 7 cobs grow on one of these sort of plants. And each of these have, well, it says 100 here, but probably much more than 100, grains of kernel corn on it. So what this ayah is actually encouraging us, and Hazrat Uthman understood it to be such that in a day of deprivation, when everybody is like really wanting this thing, he imported, or he got this sort of container of goods to come to Medina, and he didn't want to sell it. He was, even though it was, worth lots of money, he instead did the other thing, which is very rare that we find, that some people give so much that they give everything away. And Usman was of that caliber of person, that he gave a rich sort of container of goods away, knowing that he'll get much more reward of it from Allah. So this is an example of a wealthy man and how he spent his wealth. He wasn't one that went accumulating wealth upon wealth, or taking this one and making more money out of it and trying to roll the money and making more and more and more. He instead whatever he had, and he was quite wealthy, he used to give and give and give, and look at the barakah that came his way because of this. Now, look at some of the stories emanating from these three examples in our lives today. We often we find that all of us as entrepreneurs, one day we start up one business, then that one thrives and is doing well, then we think, let's open up another branch or another one. And then sometimes we go beyond even two to three to four. And it kind of just carries on. Right? So that's one example. Another example is maybe we own a chain store of a sort, like a retail store, a fast food outlet, and we have one and it's manageable. Then we think we can maybe manage two, and we get the second and the third. And very often you find as you grow bigger and too fast, you need other people to help you. Then you can't manage it yourself, and you get a manager to manage and another manager, and before you know what, it's grown out of hand and out of bounds, and you don't have control over all the things. And then you kind of just running on a treadmill, trying to keep those chain stores of yours going and profitable. We can find this even in the medical profession. You might find a doctor or a dentist or an optician, whatever. You find you might have one medical practice in a locality, and then he decides, you know what, I can actually open up a second one and run 3 days here and 3 days there and some arrangement like that. And he thinks he can manage, and he opens a second one, only to find that with time it becomes so heavy and so intense, and he can't kind of manage. Then he either has to get a locum to run the second one and manage it, or sometimes he runs himself into the ground where his family and his personal life gets affected as a result of putting his hands into too many sort of ventures. Then we have on a corporate level as well, maybe a company buying out another company similar to it through mergers or acquisitions, and in the process it grows too fast, too quick, and then that in itself spawns a whole host of other problems. How you manage all these different things that you acquired too quickly, and it becomes another challenge for you. Now, having put those four examples there, I'm sure we can all relate to one or two of those in the circle of friends that we have and even families that we have. Now, Ustad Nauman in his lecture, he gave a very good example. He says there was once a very wealthy owner of a car dealership in America, Muslim person, and then Hurricane Catherine came along and submerged his entire showroom of good cars. And all he could do at the time was the one car that he drove out of the showroom that day before the hurricane struck was the only car that kind of survived this ordeal of this hurricane. And after that, because he didn't have any insurance on it, he had to actually close that whole car dealership down. And then he says he met him after a few weeks, and then he's asking him how's life, and he says, you know what, I lost everything in that hurricane except for this one car. And what I'm doing with this one car is I'm delivering pizzas on order. So basically, he came from, mega rich to someone just living sort of a life day to day. And he says, actually, I found happiness in that because now I have more time for my family, more time for my hifz that I couldn't do and I wanted to do all my life, more time for my kids as well. And the quality of my life is actually better now that I don't have this car dealership. So there's something food for thought about, sometimes we need to put a brakes on what we're trying to do in life and achieve, just so that we get a new perspective on life and it's meaningful to us. Now, the two questions arise about all this money acquisition is, when will this sort of acquisition and acquisitiveness and piling and amassing of wealth actually end? It only ends when? At the time of death. In other words, when that person dies, then everything stops, and then you go into that new life in the grave and ready for the year after. And then the other question arises, why do we go through all this, trying to open more branches and more of everything? Sometimes it's out of pride. We want to massage our egos and show, hey, I've arrived and I've achieve so much in life. So pride could be one reason, or sometimes it's rivalry. In other words, if somebody, your neighbor or somebody else in the neighborhood could have done this, then I can do better. And you want to try and show off, and in the process, you get caught in this mad rat race of life, and rivalry actually causes us to decline. Right. So with these few sort of examples from our lives, we start off with the surah itself. Now, this surah criticizes man's preoccupation with worldly wealth. Like I said, wealth in itself is not a bad thing, but it's how you use it and how much you accumulate and how you actually go about accumulating it that we need to be concerned about. And also, the surah stresses what will be brought to account. That actually each person will obviously be brought to account on that day of resurrection, that day of accountability. So other words by which we can translate the Takaathur is competition or competitiveness, striving for more or piling up more or vying or competing with each other for more and more, worldly abundance, worldly gains. Right, so the surah has got 8 ayat. Al-Hakumut Takaathur, which is talking about rivalry or vainglory or this idea of getting more and more wealth. Al-Ha means distracted and the kum is you. And when this thing will keep on being there in your life until you visited the graves, right? In other words, when death takes over, that's when this whole rivalry and this accumulativeness is going to stop. And then it says, Kalla sawfa ta'lamun, thumma kalla sawfa ta'lamun. No, indeed, soon you will know again. No, indeed, soon you will know. Now, what is it that you should know? No, indeed, were you to know with certain knowledge that you would surely see hell. Now, that's the reality. Jannah and Jahannam is a reality, and all of us are going to see it. And hopefully we won't enter it. We'll just see it from a distance, and inshallah we'll go the other way. But that's definitely a reality, right? And again, you will surely see it with the eye of certainty. Then that day you will surely be questioned concerning the blessing, this na'im. Now, let me go through some of the main words that we need to understand in the surah. There are essentially 4 words. One is lahun or laha, lahu or laha, which is the root form, right? Which got a lam and a ha, and either a waw or a ya without dots that give you the ah sound. So lahu or laha is a form 1 verb, which means to amuse or distract or kill time or to be playful or trifle away or energy or whatever. Then al-ha comes from that form 1 verb. It's a form 4 verb, which means to delight, amuse, distract, divert, take mind away from. Now, this is what al-hakumut takaathur is, to delight, amuse, or distract you until you reach the grave. Right? Then the other word is lahun, which means amusement, pastime, diversion, entertainment, pleasure, or play. Now, this particular ayah I've got on the right-hand side is the last 3 ayah of Surah Jummah, which I'm sure you've read many times and you know what it is about. I've just got verse 9, 10, and 11 there to show you the background to it, that when the day of prayer, call for prayer on the day of Jummah is made, then we must proceed to the remembrance of Allah and leave the trade. Right? Allah is telling you for that period, definitely you must not barter, trade, deal with any sort of, buying and selling. And that is better for you if only you knew. In other words, Jummah is like a sacred day and a sacred time of worship, and you should be there. And it's a gathering of all the Muslims of the time of the locality, and it's time to meet with them and leave the trade. And then obviously the next verse says, and when the prayer has been concluded, then of course go into the land, seek from the bounty of Allah. But at the same time, what it ends off with is saying, remember Allah often that you may succeed. So in other words, don't just go headlong seeking bounty upon bounty upon bounty, which is the al-hakum al-takaathur. You must have a balance in life. Remember Allah as well while you're seeking the bounty. And then this last ayah talks about this actually happened in the time of the Prophet. One day he was on the khutbah, giving a khutbah in the masjid, and then they saw this caravan coming in, and when they saw a transaction or the diversion, and this is addressed to the Prophet Umar, they rushed to it and left you standing. In other words, they left you like sort of praying with a very small group, and some left. Now you must say to them that what is with Allah is better than this lahu, this diversion, as well as the transaction, the tijara, the buying and selling. And remember also that Allah is the best of providers. So you can see this God consciousness coming in this ayah number 10 as well as in ayah number 11 very clearly, that while you're allowed to do tijara, but you must also remember Allah provides, and remember Allah because Allah made it possible for you to even earn or do the transaction that you had in mind. Then the other verb we come across is kathara, which means yakthuru, to form one verb which to outnumber or happen frequently or numerous. And from it you get an adjective called kathir, which means much or many. And then the takaathara is a form 6 verb, which means to bond together or form a gang or, compete with each other. And takaathur as a noun means growth or proliferation or increase. And that's the verb we have in the Surah al-Haakumut Takaathuru. Right? So what has distracted you is this growth or proliferation or increase in wealth. Right? Then hatta zurtumul maqabir. We have the word qabr, which is a plural, is kubur, which is one grave, and maqbara, maqabir is a plural, which is a burial ground or a cemetery. So until you reach the cemetery, in other words, me, you, and everybody else, once we reach the cemeteries, in other words, our respective burial grounds, that's when this, gathering of wealth is going to actually stop. And in the last word in the surah is the word na'im, which means one bounty or blessing. Now, we've had this na'im, this word ni'ama, which means bounty, in Surah Al-Fatiha, Ihdina siratal mustaqim siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Right? Show us the path of those who you have blessed or you have given bounty to. Okay, so knowing these four words, I think we can come to now the other one concept that we get in the surah, which is the 3 stages of knowing something for certain. One is ilmul yaqeen, which is the knowledge that is certain. Right? So in other words, the theoretical knowledge about something. Then a deeper next level would be the ainul yaqeen, which means ain is an eye, so you see it, you've got the eye of reality to see whatever that thing is. So you're seeing it like with the eye of certainty. So that theory that you had is now in practice. You can see it in front of you. And then the ultimate one is haqqul yaqeen, where you have the truth. In other words, you really experience it. So you might enter that or feel it or experience it firsthand, and you know something for sure. Now, in the physical world, we know there's a lot of gravity and physics that come into play, right? So say if we're traveling on a road and we see a felt fire from a distance. So the first thing you see is the smoke. Now, your knowledge about physics will tell you that wherever there's smoke, there has to be a fire, right? So that is like just from the knowledge of physics, of how nature works, right? So we know that where there's smoke, there is fire. So this is the ilm we have about, and we're certain that there will be fire because we just got the knowledge that this is how nature works. Then if you come closer to the fire and you can actually see the flames now, right? Then with the eye of certainty, you know for sure that that fire is a reality. It's there. It's physical. It's in front of you. You can see it with the eye of certainty. Now, if, God forbid, it's a fell fire running over the road and your car is there, and now you take a decision that let me enter it. Maybe it's a short distance and I'll come out on the other side and all will be fine and I'll be on my way. So you enter it with your car, right? Or you drive through it. Now you get immersed in the fire and the smoke and everything else. And all your 5 senses get immersed in the fire. In other words, you can see the thing around you, to the glass of your car, the windows of your car. If it's a very hot fire, it might even burst the windscreen or the fire because it's, with the pressure. Then you might even feel the flames in the car, right? So you'll be able to hear the crackling of the flames and all the rest of it. And obviously you're going to breathe the thing. You're going to breathe the smoke and the flames. And the flames, if they're going to burn something in the car or even make your car explode or whatever because of this fuel in the car, or even catch fire on your clothes and you're going to physically burn, you're going to have the experience and the sensation of burning, then obviously you're going to have the ultimate knowledge, which is haqqul yaqeen, right? Because you have seen it. Now in this surah, they talk about Jahannam. Now, we all have read about Jahannam. It's been described in great detail in Quran and Hadith, many, many parts. Huh? So we have knowledge about it. And at this point, we may or may not believe in it, right? We might still doubt it. We think it's far away. We're going to still live along another 80 years. And we forget about the fact that death is soon and the year after is sooner. I mean, it's just after that, right? So we might have the ilmul yaqeen about Jahannam through what we have read and heard or in lectures and read in the Quran and Hadith, right? But take it another level. If you're standing now on the day of judgment and your book of deeds are being assessed and you're getting evaluated, and in a distance you can hear the the fire raging, and you can actually see it also from a sort of in a distance, that you're going to be convinced that you're going to see it with the eye of certainty. And this is what Allah is guaranteeing in the surah, that you are going to see this with the eye of certainty, right? So you're going to have Ainul Yaqeen. Then finally, after your judgment is done and you go one way or the other, if you get thrown into Jahannam, you're going to experience it firsthand, and there's going to be no denying the truth of its existence. Okay, so those are essentially the story of those three types of yaqeen that you'll have in the surah. Now let's come to the surah. So we've covered the first ayah, which is al-ha, is distraction, and kum is all of you, which means all of us, right? At-Takaathur, this rivalry and accumulation of things that has distracted us from like the greater purposes of life. And it says, Hatta zurtumul maqabir, until you visited the graves. Now, notice here, it's not saying that until you will be visiting the graves, which in reality it is in the future tense, but this is saying, like, as a matter of fact, certainty. In other words, past tense, to say until you visited, that you will definitely even experience the life in the grave. Right? That's the second ayah. Then it's talking about kalla. No, indeed, it's like emphasizing the fact so far in the future. Right? So far is a future far away. Ta'alamun, you will have that ilm. You will know. This ilm is there, the knowledge, and the ta is you, and the waw nun at the end makes it plural. So you all will know. Right? Thumma kalla sofa ta'alamun, that no, again, indeed, you will soon know. Right? Kalla, again, kalla is used three times for emphasis, right? Lo ta'lamuna, if you were to know with the ilmul yaqeen, with the knowledge, with the certainty of knowledge, then latarawunna al-jahim, that you will see. Ra'a we had in ara'ayta alladhi yukadhibu bidin, right? To see. So latarawunna, latara, the la is just for emphasis, and even the noon with the tajdeed is for emphasis. The verb is the tara in the middle there, right? So you will see the jahim. Jahim is this raging hellfire. Thumma, then, latarawunnaha, that you will see it, ayn al-yaqeen, with the eye of certainty. So you only had knowledge about it, but now you're going to actually see it. And then, thumma latus'alunna yawma idhin anin na'im. Sa'ala is a question. Latus'alunna will be, again, you will be, and then the la and the noon at the end, for emphasis that you will definitely be questioned. Yawma idhin, that day, about the na'im. Now, the na'im is a singular word. An'um or ni'amat are plural of na'im. Now, an interesting explanation of this comes again from the Sira of the Prophet. One day, the Prophet ﷺ had gone through a few days of hunger. There's absolutely no food in his house, and he was like starving on that day. Right? Then Hazrat Abu Bakr comes to his house and says, have you got any food? I'm starving. So the Prophet obviously didn't have anything, and soon thereafter Hazrat Umar also walks in, and he was also starving. So the three of them were like absolutely hungry. So they go to one Sahabi, the Prophet ﷺ, and they ask for some help, and that Sahabi gives them some dates and water. Now, just before the three of them started eating this, the Prophet looked at Abu Bakr and Umar and said, you know what? This is a na'im, in other words, one blessing that all of us are going to be questioned about. In other words, this little bit in the day even of deprivation, this absolute minimum that we've got today as a bounty from Allah, we are going to be questioned about it. Now, this is very serious because if you look at here, it's talking about just one na'im. Now, if you look at our lives and how much we have, in terms of food that we have at home, in terms of opportunity we have, wealth we have, and the more you have, obviously the answerability for the more is going to be even more. Right? So a poor man will have some things to answer for. A wealthier man will have little more things to answer about, but a very wealthy man will have lots and lots of things to answer for. Every little thing is going to be accounted for on that day that you're given this. How did you use it or abuse it, or what you did with it, or how you wasted it, and what you did with it. Right? So we're going to be questioned in a very detailed way about every little thing that we were given as bounties in this worldly life. So we need to be watching our step, doing the right thing, and using Uthman radiallahu anhu's example when we do have excess wealth, and also have a reasonable sort of approach to what having wealth is. Don't go overboard. Don't make it your life a treadmill that you're running and running on the spot, and meanwhile you're going nowhere and you're just accumulating more and more. But at the end of the day, what you're doing it for, and what lifestyle are you having? Is there quality in your life? And if there isn't, then that's where you must apply the brakes before it comes to an end. Now, this frog in a boiling water is, it's a beautiful story of how a frog, like if you put a frog in a jar of water. Now, frogs do live both on land and in water, so frogs feel comfortable in water. Then if you put a sort of a burner underneath it and you start boiling that water. So as the frog is in the water, that's like room temperature, then it gets a little hotter in it. The frog gets accustomed to the little more hot temperature of the water. Then it gets a little even hotter. Then it gets accustomed to even the more hot sort of temperature until it reaches a time when it's boiling hot. You can literally see, the fumes coming out of the water, and by that time, when the frog realizes, hey, this water is boiling hot, and I should jump out because I'll die, he tries to jump and he can't jump because he's already burning. He's already boiling in that water, and he's got no energy to even get out of the water. And then at the end, he just dies because the water is boiling hot. Now, in a sense, this is the story about our life. We need to be careful that we in this world, we are almost like frogs in a container of water. How we spend our life, we go day to day, the water boils a bit more, we get more involved in life. We buy one tractor, one more of this and one more of that. And with the result, everything that we buy and accumulate becomes more of this boiling sort of nature around us until such time that what? The frog dies or we die, and then we visit the grave. So I think the story about the boiling frog is very relevant to this particular surah as well. Right, and finally, I just want to stop with this Hadith Qudsi. I'm sure you've heard it before, but I think I'd like to just play it and I'll explain it very briefly. Now, Hadith Qudsi is different from a Hadith Nabawi. Normally, we know Hadith Nabawi is where the Prophet said something, some Sahabas heard it, and they become the sanad or the chain of reporters that heard the Prophet saying that. So that's a Hadith Nabawi, and then they report exactly what the Prophet said. In a Hadith Qudsi, Quds means holy. Now, it's a saying of the Prophet in which the meaning is actually revealed by Allah directly. And the phrasing of the wording is just formulated by the Prophet. So it's not a revelation per se, so it's not Quran. But after Quran, the Hadith Qudsi is standing as the most authentic in terms of Hadith. Allah the Almighty has said, O Bani Adam, don't fear anybody, as I have full sovereignty and control. And that sovereignty, my ownership of you as well as the whole creation, does not diminish in any way whatsoever. O Bani Adam, don't fear lessening of your risk. I give to all of my creation, and my storehouse of good things never gets depleted. It never finishes. Now, this is applying to humankind, all animals, the sea life, animal, the insects. Everything has got its risk from this bountiful storehouse of Allah. Right? But in the case of human beings, he says, I created you for ibadah, submission as a slave. So don't treat this as a lightly thing or have fear about it as such. So tread like in the middle course. don't be overly like scared about it. The fact that you must make, have ibadah and worship me, but don't treat it lightly also. So you should work hard to earn the risk. In your heart should always be reliant on me. So have this balance that you're striving to earn in the world, but you're relying on Allah. If you are pleased with what I have blessed you with, your body and heart will be at ease and you will be praised by me. So you'll have ease from the stresses of striving in this world. But if you are not content with what I've promised and allocated to you, then I swear I will unleash the world onto you, and you will run like animals in search of it, and you will still not get except what I have ordained for you. So this whole issue of qada and qadar, what Allah has ordained for you, you will still get, no matter how hard you run and no matter how mad you run, like animals in search of it. All right? So I created the seven heavens and earth, so it is no trouble for me to send you a piece of bread or to put food on your table. O Bani Adam, don't ask me for your risk of tomorrow, just as I have not asked you for your deeds of tomorrow. And O Bani Adam, I have created you in the best of molds, and you are my preferred creation, so fulfill your rights to me as it should be done. So I think this Hadith Qudsi puts it quite well in that it's talking about having a balance, that seek your rosy, don't just expect things to fall from the sky. You must work hard for it, get it, but at the same time you must have consciousness about Allah, rely on me, and it's only me as Allah that can give you whatever you need in life. So remember, work hard, strive hard, but be grateful for what you have, and don't try and go overboard in what you're searching for as well, because you can only attain that much which has been pre-allocated to you in any case. Okay, with that, inshallah, I'll stop on that note. We'll talk about the hadith thing perhaps on another occasion. We'll end with the Surah Al-Asr, Wal-Asr, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Wal-Asr, Inna al-insana lafi qusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu s-salihat, wa tawasaw bil-haqq, wa tawasaw bis-sabr.